Welcome to the Underbelly Podcast, brought to you by Clarity Financial, as we peek underneath, poke around, and expose the unexposed stories of the week about finance, economics, politics, and life. I'm Brent Clanton, executive producer of The Lance Roberts Show and The Real Investment Hour. We wanted to create a forum for exchanging stories, ideas, and anecdotes that deserve more in-depth, unfiltered conversations, plus allow you a glimpse behind the scenes. As always, we welcome your feedback. Find us on Facebook or online at realinvestmentadvice.com. Now, let's step inside the studio for the Underbelly Podcast, starting now. And good afternoon. I am Brent Clanton, along with Richard Rosso, our Director of Financial Planning at Clarity Financial, and our special guest, Susan Giacona, who is a vocalist we're going to learn a little bit more about, and her partner in crime, Mark Stocker. Good to have you both in with us this afternoon.
Thank you so much.
First, right off the bat, though, Richard, what in the wide world of sports is going on in the markets this afternoon?
It's a little bloody. It's a little bloody today in the markets. And again, we're sitting right on support for the S&P 500, right at the 50-day moving average. The one thing that the market hates is when Main Street starts to make money in the form of wages. So wages show a 2.8% jump from a year ago. So a little bit more heated than the market is comfortable with. And of course, interest rates are rising. Another little bit of a stumble for markets overall. But again, the economic news came out this morning strong. U.S. unemployment rate falls to the lowest level since Brent was a wee boy in 1969, terrorizing people and dipping
all that wee back in '69,
dipping pigtails into inkwells and stuff.
Yes, that's how it
in
works.
his one-room schoolhouse. So again, it sounds counterintuitive, but yet when markets are a little overheated, when the economy gets a little overheated or appears to be, the market does not like that, anticipating that the Fed might have to raise rates. It's all tied into the magical interest rates. We also have seen mortgage rates increase, and JP Morgan laying off 400 in mortgages. So we are seeing weakness in housing due to higher rates, although many of the pundits said, 4+%, 5%, no big deal. When I walked through the snow as a kid on the way to school, interest rates were 18%. Well, it doesn't matter. Today, we are very much incented by low rates, and we live by payments. Therefore, mortgage rates are providing pressure. And we are starting to see layoffs. Wells Fargo and now JP Morgan in housing.
How big of a ripple is that going to make, do you think?
I always think housing is the first crack to economic contraction. Now, horrible timing. Could be a year, could be a little bit longer. However, these are the kinds of things you need to watch overall. But it is nice to see Main Street finally getting wages after how many decades? 2, 3, 4?
Something like
so it's a little bit more heated, and interest rates rising is a big concern. But again, nothing to worry about. We've had a nice run here. S&P is sitting on support. We just need to see where it goes from here.
And there are a couple of video clips that we posted, I think, yesterday. It might have been Wednesday evening, with you and Lance discussing the impact of interest rates. And you can find those two videos on our YouTube channel, The Lance Roberts Show, and also on our website, realinvestmentadvice.com.
Listen, if you're a saver, if you are somebody who invests conservatively, you're seeing some of the best interest rates on bonds, CDs, savings accounts than you've seen in over a decade.
Yeah, we'll take them, I think.
I think so.
All right. So let's turn to our special guests in the studio this afternoon. Susan Giacona is a vocalist that I just happened across. I don't even remember how I found the video that she did for the Battleship Texas. Yeah. And if you could pull that microphone very close to your lovely mouth, you'll actually look better on the radio.
How about this?
Oh, that's magnificent.
Okay.
Yes. Much better.
Well, I had to take off my fabulous earrings because they don't work with the headphones.
No, that's one of the drawbacks of the way we work.
I see you don't
here.
have yours on either. So.
No, I took mine out.
Yeah.
He also took his hair off.
Yeah.
Y'all are mean to each other.
Yes, we are, but
It's love.
we
It's
love
love.
one another. How far back did we go, Rich?
Oh, my goodness.
Good
when
night,
I even
Rich.
had hair.
Yeah.
Long time.
Back in the day, we were kin with Marconi, so
Yes.
that'll give you some. But you guys actually connected, and I wanted you to kind of reiterate that story to us, Richard.
Let Susan do that.
All right,
I was going to say, is
Susan.
there a story?
There is really not much of a story.
It's really
except
not
that-
much of a story. Facebook is a wonderful thing.
Yeah,
And then you find out how people know other people that you had no idea that they knew.
I know.
And we had several mutual friends.
That's a great icebreaker at parties, by the way.
What's that?
So how do you know Richard Rosso?
Yeah.
Boy, does that start a whole conversation.
It could.
Well, I've never actually attended a function where Richard is also until now. But I will make sure that I
Yeah,
do that.
oh yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But Susan's got a great voice. We share a love of country music. We share
Yeah.
a love of Nashville. Mm-hmm. All things Tennessee. So
Yes, for sure.
So
Very
lots
good.
of talent. So I thought, And then I was watching all her progression with the Battleship Texas and
Yeah.
all her work there. And I thought you would really enjoy that.
I do, and we'll just kind of jump into
Yeah.
that right away because I volunteer. I'm one of the docents on the Battleship Texas.
That is so good. And what fun that is. Because
It really is.
yeah, there were some volunteers there the day that we filmed. Well, actually, we were 2 days on the ship filming for a couple different scenes there,
Right.
and some of the volunteers were there, and the board of directors was actually there that day. And boy, it takes a lot of work to keep that ship going, not just from the looks of it, but to keep it operating.
Well, when the Battleship Texas was in service, she had a crew of between 11 and 1,200 full-time sailors to maintain the entire facility. Now, it's the same big battleship, and you have a handful of Texas Department of Parks and Recreation employees, and maybe a couple of hundred volunteers.
Right.
That's it.
Brent,
Right.
didn't you have some interesting photos, some relics you found, like unopened?
Oh,
What did you
Oh
find?
my goodness!
You always
I
found
found
some
all
cool
kinds
stuff.
of stuff. I found a can of tuna.
Did you really?
You had it for lunch.
in a
that day.
locker.
You had it for lunch.
Oh wow.
We have found guitar picks. There's all kinds of personal, and you don't move it.
Right.
It stays.
Oh, it
Right.
stays.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Stays right where you find it.
All right.
But there's lockers all over the battleship. When the First Texas Volunteers will take groups on the hard hat tours, we go into spaces that are not open to the general public.
As we did the day
Yes.
that we went on with the film crew
Right.
to decide where we were going to shoot each scene. And so we did go into some areas that the general public does not go. And so one of the things like that, as far as things just like they were left, would be the engineering room.
Yes.
And one of our scenes of what's supposed to be the husband in the song.
Yes.
He's in the room. Of course, you've seen the video, I'm sure. So he's in that room, and he has on those headphones. No, I guess do you call them headphones from way back then?
They were headsets.
Headsets, excuse
Yes.
me. And then all of the maps and all were out on the
Yes.
table, and
Yes.
they're all yellowed and they're frayed on the edges. And then all of the original books that showed the the way that they used to navigate
Yes.
back then, and then they did use some things that had to do with the sky and the stars and all that, at least to some degree. I realize it was more advanced than than ancient times, but they did still have some of that
Right.
in their books on the shelf. And I have chill bumps saying it because it was like stepping back in time.
Yeah, it really was.
And yes, so it was really such an incredible experience, and I was so honored that they asked me to do it, and I was honored that. Well, first they actually asked me to write a song for the project, and then they ended up hearing a song that I had already written, and they loved it. And so I tweaked the lyrics somewhat to have a few little nautical references here and there, and, and then we have a little bit of the anthem, at the beginning.
Yeah. Well, would it be okay if we rolled the video?
Oh, please!
All right.
I actually haven't seen it in a while.
Oh, well, it's on the big screen.
Okay.
We're gonna change screens here.
Oh, goodness. I got a big Susan behind me.
Yeah. Here we go.
Oh, wow, that is big.
across the sea. Leaving behind a home and a family. Bitter reminders, sweet freedom isn't free. He kissed the love of his life and his babies goodbye. That ship was leaving, time to fall in line. There were tears of pain and pride, side by side. Living a valiant life comes with sacrifice. The miles apart would not pull them under. He whispered, hold on tight, we're fighting the good fight together. And he was walking away from heaven to fight the fury of hell. Determined and bold, he knew deep in his soul he'd be back with a story of victory to tell. He loved his country and he loved her too. Leaving was breaking her heart, he knew. He said, I'm doing it for us, I'm doing it for you, I'm doing it for the red, white, and blue. Walking away from heaven, walking away from heaven, walking away from heaven, walking away from heaven. Waving at her as he stood on the bow. Courage and steel would bring him back somehow. They had to be strong, they had to believe. Living a valiant life comes with sacrifice. The miles apart would not pull them under. He whispered, hold on tight, we're fighting the good fight together. And he was walking away from heaven to fight the fury of hell. Determined and bold, he knew deep in his soul he'd be back with a story of victory to tell. He loved his country and he loved her too. Leaving was breaking her heart, he knew. He said, I'm doing it for us, I'm doing it for you, I'm doing it for the red, white, and blue. Walking away from heaven, walking away from heaven, walking
Wow, that is magnificent.
Thank you so much.
That is just amazing.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy with the way it turned out, and they were happy with the way it turned
Well,
out.
looks
Most
great.
importantly, and yes, so it was quite an adventure, and it's great being a part of history. It's such an honor being part of history. Actually, my boys love it, and so. Yeah, you saw the books actually right there that I was talking about.
The navigational tables, and those are in the wheelhouse, in the navigation room after the wheelhouse, up on the superstructure of the
That's
Battleship
right.
Texas.
That's
and,
right.
It's really amazing to walk into that room because you might not know this, but it's copper lined against electricity, electromagnetic signals, so that it wouldn't interfere with what was going on.
I knew that.
Yeah.
I don't think I knew that. But it was amazing looking at the living quarters and how tight everything was, and thinking about all those guys on that ship. I mean, if you had any issues, if you were claustrophobic, if you were this or if you were that, you just better get over it real quick.
That's right.
Because, they were marching on, so to speak. And but what a sacrifice those guys made. I was raised in a very patriotic family, if you will. So I wish my dad was around to see this, because he would have just really been excited with it. But
So how was the connection made between you and the Battleship Texas Foundation to do this?
Let's see. Funny thing is that a couple of years ago, I had written that song, and I had talked to Gordy Bunch,
Yes.
who has over our township in the Woodlands.
Yes.
And I told Gordy that I'd like to do a music video on the Battleship. And he said, "Well, let me talk to a couple of people." And he sent an email, and it turned out to be just pages and pages of paperwork to be able to do this, because it's governed by the Texas Parks and Wildlife,
Right.
and there was so much paperwork to be able to do it. And I said, you know what? I got a lot of other projects in the queue. I'll think about that later.
Yeah.
And then fast forward 2 years. Bruce Bramlett, who is the executive director of the Battleship Foundation, contacted me. I was actually at a music seminar in New York, and I ducked out of the room to talk to him for a minute. And he said, "We're doing this project. We're doing a PR campaign, and we'd like to know if you're interested in writing a song for us." And so it turns out that it was just completely coincidence. He did not know anything about any of that 2 years prior.
So you were
he didn't-
supposed to do this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Isn't that crazy? And I sent him that song, and I just said, you know what, just listen to this. I don't know right now, what you're wanting. And I sent it to him, and he just texted me back like literally the length of the song, 3 minutes and 30 seconds or whatever. Of course, it's longer in the video because we added some things, but literally he listened to it and sent me back a message saying, "This is it." And I was on a plane to Nashville, and in 2 hours, I tweaked the lyrics a little bit to fit, what they were trying to do here. And as I said, made some nautical references here and there. And I was so excited. I sent him a message saying, "I think I might have hit truly what you're looking for," and that was it too. And he loved that. And then I sang for the board of directors with no music in the boardroom.
A cappella.
Yes, and so they approved that. And then we went, and I sang for the city of LaPorte,
Yes.
which is where the ship, obviously, the home of the ship there. I think Deer Park and LaPorte, I think they both like to call the ship.
There's a little bit of a competition on who
There
gets
is.
bragging rights.
There is.
Which is fine.
That's a beautiful thing to brag about, though,
Competition's
right?
great.
Exactly. So I sang for the city of LaPorte and the mayor there, and the city council in front of everyone else there that had things they needed to talk about
Yeah.
with the city council. So I
Well,
sang for that meeting.
How often
a
are you
cappella.
serenaded at city council?
Well, yes,
By a
and-
video music star.
And it was funny because there were a few people there that were there to talk about things that they weren't exactly happy about. And so I was looking across this crowd, and most people were just wondering, what was going on. They weren't fully understanding. And then a few people, were a little bit grumbly because they were there to talk about a grievance. And so I started explaining more about what we were doing, and I said, okay, close your eyes and and picture this. This is the storyboard. This is where you are. And I was explaining the beginning of that, and so then you could see their faces soften, and they looked like they were more interested. And then I sang the song with no music, and everybody clapped, and it was an incredible experience singing for the city as well as the people that didn't necessarily come to be serenaded.
And everything on the agenda passed that day.
It did actually. So.
That's terrific. The Battleship Texas, for those of you who are not familiar, is 104 years old, going on 105.
That's correct.
Commissioned in 1914. She actually was launched 6 weeks after the sinking of the Titanic. So you're talking about a piece of history that was contemporary with the Titanic, as far as technical and structural technologies that were going on. The steam engines in the Battleship Texas are the only ones in existence of their type right now. They are a National Historic Monument, as is the battleship. So there's a lot of history in that hull. And what the Battleship Texas Foundation is trying to do is preserve it. Taylor Marine just finished the second of a 3-phase repair project to restore some of the steel that had been rusting out in the hull. And the whole purpose for this is to make her structurally able to be taken out of the water. The end result is to lift the Texas out of the water.
Exactly.
Put her in a dry berth so that everybody can see her for generations.
Oh, nice.
Right.
Very
right.
good. So is your video being shown? And I mean, are they using it in the PR campaigns, or where else is it?
In all honesty, I don't know what their advertising firms, what all their plans are, but they have a whole campaign that involves the song and the video.
Very
and this
nice.
and that.
Yeah, battleshiptexas.org is the website for the Battleship Texas Foundation. The First Texas Volunteers, of which I am a member, has its own website, and both of those entities have Facebook pages too. So there's lots of ways to get in touch with those who are working on the endeavor to restore and preserve the Battleship Texas.
Yes, and people should take a tour. I mean,
Oh,
you should take your
absolutely.
kids. I mean,
Yeah.
they have an overnight program that's incredible.
I've heard about that.
Yes,
Yeah.
and you literally get to sleep where these guys slept.
Yeah, they had converted the gun casemates into sleeping quarters.
Wow.
And so they've got hammocks. Well, not hammocks. What are they called? Racks.
Well, they're racks, and they pull out from the wall,
Yeah.
which was interesting because where they ate, there were also beds that were folded up on the wall because they would put the beds everywhere that they could.
Space saving.
Oh, and I saw where what's the news reporter that Walter Cronkite.
Walter Cronkite.
Saw where Walter Cronkite
Yes.
slept
Yes.
during his time where he was reporting back on the
In
war.
the ship's doctor's cabin.
Yes, I'll have to send you the
Wow.
pictures from that behind the scenes tour that we did with the film crew.
A family whose name escapes me contributed a lot of money a few years back so that they could restore that particular cabin. It's far forward, up at the bow of the battleship, but they restored the physician's cabin.
Oh, it's beautiful.
It
It's
really is
incredible. And
amazing.
the picture that's on the desk there is actually the picture of the doctor's wife.
Really?
Yes.
Oh, wow.
See, now I thought your PR guy would have had your picture in there.
Well, the day's not over yet.
That's true.
If I could make some calls.
By the way, you really you captured the period look in
Yes,
that
you
video.
did.
I
Yeah.
mean,
Thank
and
you.
you've aged amazingly well for 40
and,
years.
and I appreciate that.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So that was really fun doing that with the whole 1940s, red lipstick and all of that. The gloves that I had on were actually my grandmother's gloves.
Really?
Yes.
So that was a 2-day shoot.
Well, it was a 2-day on the ship,
Mm-hmm.
and then we had another day out at this wonderful family out in Montgomery, Texas. Let us use. They had kept the original farmhouse from their property,
Mm-hmm.
or that was on their property, and then we had. Oh my gosh, a guy. He's a veteran. I'm going to have to remember his name. Is it Frontline? Oh gosh, he brought in his truck for us,
The
literally.
GMC.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
yes.
Wow.
He had it towed because he doesn't drive it.
Mm-hmm.
He had it brought to us for that scene. And oh god, I wish I could remember his name. I appreciate him doing it so much.
Is he in the credits at the
He
end
is
of
in
the
the
video?
credits.
Okay.
He is. Yes, everybody that did anything is in the credits. Michael Brower mixed that song for me.
Yeah.
Michael Brower has mixed for, oh my gosh, Coldplay and Michael Jackson and all that. So I was really excited to have him involved in that. And Red Tree Music.
Yeah.
We did it in the Red Tree studio, actually up in the Woodlands. Yes, so there was just some really incredible people. The drone footage, I loved that drone footage. That was with real life, a real life video.
Yes.
They're up in the Woodlands as well.
That's amazing. That last scene as it's the drones flying
Yeah.
over,
Yes.
that's the stern of the battleship. And a lot of guys have been working on those guns since that was shot. And they've made a lot of progress in restoring the guns on the aft portion of the battleship.
Wow.
Yeah.
Right.
Pretty amazing stuff.
Right. Yes, that was a fun scene because the wind was blowing so hard, as you could see, and at first we were backwards, so my hair was blowing like this.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then that, fun as it was,
Didn't work.
it didn't work. So we ended up having to switch everybody around. We had to tell tourists that they had to go around the backside, so we had to make some changes.
So
we
how
could
many
get the
people were
wind.
watching as you did the video footage?
Oh,
did you have a
gosh.
live audience there?
I did.
Yeah?
I did. Because they were roping off everything as we went. So so there were tourists. There was a school group there that day. Yeah, so that was fun. Yeah.
There's always stuff going on. It's more than just tours. It's more than just a museum ship. Sometimes you'll see a SWAT team training up in the rigging. They'll hang the ropes and rappel up and down to practice their techniques and stuff. There's always stuff going on.
Yeah, and it's rugged too. When
Oh, yeah.
when you go, let me just add, I know that you know this, but for everybody listening, when you go and you take the tour and you take your children, you have to wear comfortable shoes.
I would think so.
Yeah, you cannot,
Yeah.
And they should
No
not
flip-flops.
be no flip flops. Exactly. No flip flops are comfortable, but they need to be tennis shoes, something that ties on your feet. And those stairs are steep, and they are way high up. And thinking about those guys going up and down those stairs so fast.
Well, it was built for 17-year-old flat bellies. Seriously. I mean, guys that were this wide.
Yeah.
I have a friend whose grandfather was a fire control engineer. His name is Julio Zacagni, and he lives here in Houston. And he told me a story of the time that he crawled up the inside of one of those tripod masts to follow some wires.
Oh my goodness.
He said he did it just
Inside-
because
inside the mast.
inside. So you kind of give an idea what the guys had to do their jobs.
Right.
Way back in the
Those
day.
are the size of airplane seats now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And did you know that there and this is one too many, but it's surprising to me that there was only one person killed on that ship.
In 2 world wars.
Yes, in
Really?
2 world wars.
Yes.
That is amazing.
That is amazing.
Yes.
It was 10 days after D-Day.
And his first name was Christian, and I can't remember his last name, but his first name was
it
Christian.
was Christian Christensen.
There you go.
Yes,
I
he
should-
was 22 years old. He was the helmsman, and there was a battle for Cherbourg, which was a port in France, and they were dueling with a German gun emplacement on the coast of France.
Wow.
And the battleship
Amazing.
Texas got straddled. One shell hit over here, one shell hit over there, and the third one hit the top of the conning tower and exploded upwards. The wheelhouse was just above that, and so it blew the deck plates out. The deck plates had been riveted, so those rivets broke loose like shotgun pellets.
Of course.
And it injured about 12 guys up
Okay.
there, and mortally wounded Christian Christensen.
So that's how we died from.
Yes.
Yes.
But it was
From the
the
war.
only wartime fatality on the Battleship Texas.
And at the time, and again, I know this is redundant for you, you know so much about it, but for those listening, it was the most powerful,
Oh, yeah.
I guess,
Warship.
warship, the most powerful piece of weaponry in the world at the time.
When she was built, she was 14-inch guns, 10 14-inch guns. And they could,
That I did not know.
yeah, they could hurl a shell weighing 1,500 pounds 12 miles.
Dang.
There's actually a narrated history of the ship that's on YouTube. Lyle Lovett did it.
Yes.
4 years ago.
It's great.
So if somebody wants to go and listen to that narration, it's a lot of information in a short period of time. So they did a great job on that as well.
very
And
well
obviously,
done.
I'm very honored to follow Lyle Lovett in their projects. But yes, I loved that video because you can learn so much right with that one video.
So, Susan, I know that you're working on some other projects, some of which you can't divulge, but some of it you can. What's next for you?
Well, actually, the biggest project that I'm working on right now has to do with a project that is going to. It's a. Can I say?
It revolves around you.
Okay.
basically.
You could tell us,
Yeah.
but you'd
It's
have
a
to shoot
brand.
us.
It's a brand around you.
Yes.
Really?
Yes, and
Like Giacona bags?
it's Giacona with an N, by the
Giacona,
way.
sorry.
That's okay. That's all right. That's all right.
But not Gucci.
I'm sorry about bags. What'd you say about bags?
It was just a bag.
A bag. What?
Not Gucci, but a Gia. Never mind.
Okay, I am so sorry. The wheels were turning as to if I had said too much about the project, but
This is
but-
live, ladies and gentlemen.
You can tell.
Yes, so it's a TV project, and we've got a lot of really incredible people involved in it. Cliff Doyle, my manager. Cliff is in Nashville. He'll actually be flying down today. Anthony Scarlatti, who's an incredible photographer. I'll be in Nashville with him next week working on some of our branding photography for it. And so it's very exciting. I wish I could tell you more, but
Well, what we'll have to do is circle back with you when you can tell us more about
absolutely.
it.
Please.
And we'll assist with the rollout here on the Underbelly podcast.
That would be fabulous.
That's
Thank you so
fabulous.
Yeah.
much.
All
So
right.
so Mark has his history is deep and wide in television, and so Mark is on the production team for the show
Very
and
good.
for other movies
Yeah.
as well that I have written music for, and so one in particular. Can we tell him about?
Yes, I'm working on a project for author Ryan Rayston, and she wrote a book called The Quiet Sound of Disappearing, and we're about to make we're going for a Netflix series on this because it's a story of a girl that was your all-American girl. She was a cheerleader. She dated, the high school boyfriend was the captain of the football team and all that, and she just unfortunately went by the wayside and got deeply into drugs and deeply into prostitution and all that, and her life became a mess. And it's a story that actually revolves around Washington, D.C. And so we are quickly putting that into play. And so I commissioned Susan and a good friend of hers and a friend of mine, Jim Femino, and they wrote a song called Phoenix, which is going to be the centerpiece of the musical part of it. But that's rolling out. I've got another film. Y'all might not know his name, but Reggie Ham is a great songwriter in Nashville, and Reggie told me about a screenplay that he was working on, a screenplay about a father and a son that lost their connection with each other, and how they got to that connection is just one of the it's one of the most touching stories and it's good because I think in this day and age we've got to work on us men have to work on reconnecting with our sons and with our daughters, and I think this is one of those stories that just has to get told. But Reggie, people won't know Reggie's name, but they'll know his songwriting because the most famous song that he's written so far is "The Time of My Life," that was recorded by David Cook, and that later on became the theme of the 2008 Beijing Olympics. Well, Reggie's trying to make that transition, as we all are. I'm 58, and my wife keeps telling me, you're crazy. You're absolutely out of your mind.
And I'm not
to
sure
do this
why Mark here is putting me in the category with the 58. I'm not sure what that
I
had
know.
to do with.
We're all
but
making
I
transition.
I saw a hand come this direction. And,
Well,
yeah.
it was nice knowing you, Mark.
Yeah,
Well,
really.
No, the reason is, I mean, most of the entertainment business is basically centered around people between the ages of 17 and 25.
That's right.
And for us to be making these changes in our life and to be pursuing things later on in our human existence on this planet is a daunting task because not everybody is keen on that kind of thing. But I'm noticing a trend in the industry where people above the age of 40 are trying to make that last final push, that one thing that they've always wanted to do. And it doesn't matter what age you are. What I'm going to encourage your listeners and your viewers of this podcast today is, I don't care if you're 40, 45, 50, 60, 65. If there's something that you've wanted to do, if there's a business that you wanted to start, now is the time for you to do it.
Yeah.
Make that push, take that chance. My wife calls me a nut. She calls me a nut every day of my life. But, you know, there comes a time where you just have that one thing left in you, that one calling left in you. And that's what I'm trying to pursue. And for me, it's film. I've been very close to film. I've been very close to television. The show Forensic Files has been very, very good to me over the 22 years that it's been on the air. And I was there on that first production team way back in 1993 when it was Medical Detectives. So
Mark scored all the music. Is the reason
Really?
he scored
Well,
all the music,
Yeah.
and obviously your music sets the tone
Yes.
for your scenes, so it wouldn't be nearly the same. A lot of people don't realize how important music is to the visual.
Well, the other part of it was I was also the only sound designer. I was wearing 3 hats at the time because
And a pair of headphones.
And a pair of headphones. And I mean, because we had one editor, we had a shoot team because we were doing a lot of recreations back then. Peter Thomas, who was a friend of mine, everybody knows the voice of Peter Thomas, you know, with Tropicana orange juice and all that. I met Peter in New York, and we were having breakfast together, and he's just I miss him. I miss him dearly. He left us about 7 years ago. You know, we got him off the card. You know, he was getting $10,000, $12,000 an appearance, you know, for whatever he was. He said, "Oh, don't worry about that." He said, I'll just do it for this amount of money and everything will be just fine. He said, and I'll piggyback it on the other stuff. He said, it'll be just great. And we did a lot of things on the budget back then in 93. And then when it came to 1998, we were nominated for a Cable Ace. And that's when the whole transition began to repackage the show as Forensic Files, as people are seeing now on CNN and Headline News. I mean, it made its rounds. It made its rounds on the Learning Channel. It made its rounds on Court TV, True TV, then Headline News, then CNN. Who knows where it's going? Now I'm seeing it pop up on little things like Bounce TV and stuff like that. I'm starting to see the ad. But so that was very good to me for those years. And I worked a lot in television for 25, 30 years. And now it's, you know, for me to be stepping into film.
And it's not even film; it's all digital.
It's all digital now, and
I understand that man what he's doing.
Yeah, well, I was gonna pull you into this, Richard, because a couple of things, and something you said a minute ago about us older folks, you know, doing things. How is that showing up in how or what kinds of shows are being produced? You know, 17 to 25, that's the pop group, but there's a whole lot more people in our age range who spend money from advertisements.
We can still see.
We can still see, exactly. So is there evolving or developing or emerging a drive for entertainment for that age cohort? And I know you've looked at this a little bit, Richard.
Well, I think where Mark's onto something is the human interaction is going to become more important
Absolutely.
in film. You know, where everybody's tired of all the. I mean, I love all the superhero movies and all that, but there's just so much of that you can take.
Yeah.
Okay. So interactions between people, the conflict, the trials, especially with parents and children, I think is going to be a big genre for even younger people. I mean, you are seeing Gen X, Gen Y are more conservative than millennials. Okay. Millennials are actually staying married longer. okay, you're going to start to see a change. And I think you will see a shift to films with more substance again. And so I absolutely think that's something that is going to be very important.
Have you shared with Mark the project that you've been working on?
Mark knows a little bit about it. I'm going
Yeah?
to talk to him a little bit more. And I had a meeting yesterday about it. So, but it's brings back some of the old time feelings we had.
Give us a recap for the video here.
Oh, so working on a screenplay for The Rifleman. So just bringing back the backstory of how Lucas McCain became the Rifleman and all what he went through to find himself again, to become the father he was supposed to be. So he's a little bit more of a flawed character than you see in the show, because I need to build him to what he was, the legend he became. What was the mix? What created that person that stands up, not stands against, but stands for something and puts himself on the line? You just don't, that doesn't come out of nowhere. In the show, they could never show you that. They would hint. So I had to build that backstory. So my weekends are, I'm in the Old West.
Bit of a prequel.
I sort of like
then.
it.
To tell you the truth, that's the Westerns are making a comeback.
Oh, yeah.
They're making a comeback in a big way. And you know, the pioneer of that was Kevin Costner and the movie Open Range. And as a matter of fact,
And
I have
that score, oh, my goodness.
I
Yeah,
know,
it's
and it was
amazing.
done by a total unknown.
Yeah.
Absolutely, totally unknown. I actually have a Western, too, that I'm working on. It's called Fool's Gold. And right now, Mr. Costner is reading that script. And Kate Hudson is reading it as well. Now, Kate Hudson's walking a little tightrope because she's about to deliver a baby.
She's pretty looking to pop.
Yeah, she's about to pop soon.
She's about
we were
to
trying
go.
to trying to get it green lighted, fast tracked, so that we could get her actually pregnant, which would be the first time that's happened in Hollywood.
you could- her husband would have been
You could
ticked
get her
off
on
by
film as being actually pregnant, not get her
I
pregnant.
caught
That's
it.
right.
I
I mean,
caught
yeah,
it.
just
I
get
know.
her out.
Y'all, I wasn't even going to go there, and
I
y'all
told
did,
you I was.
so
I hate talking on the radio.
No, but I think Westerns have some other core behind them. I mean, people think of Westerns, and I always love Westerns, but it's not. And I grew up in New York, right? I grew up in a tenement house in Brooklyn, right?
Yeah,
Every time
what?
I took my pants off, the F train saw me.
Was that because you lived in New York that the Westerns appealed to you?
Well, it's just that I
'Cause it
was,
was so
odd. I
different.
was such a weird child.
Yeah.
Even my dad would walk by me and go, "Who are you? Get away!" So, but it was what it took to create the Old West. The spirit and the blood and the guts, all the stuff that people would love, everything that the trials and the errors of that. So to me, it's not, the Western's just it's a background for it. It's almost like I have a hard time putting the Rifleman in the genre of Western because of the relationships and the tragedy and what takes him to be the father he should be to his only son.
And those interpersonal truisms are fact regardless of the time period.
Correct.
They're
Correct. So I think
common
there's
to all
other-
men and women.
Sometimes
regardless.
Westerns can go a lot deeper
Yeah.
as opposed to, Fistful of Dollars, even though I do love that kind of stuff.
Of course.
Okay, and the corny music and all the spaghetti Westerns and all that. And that's where Kevin Costner, I think, did such a great job with Open Range and some of these stories that you feel more than it's just a Western. So,
And I think they also did a good job with the new Lone Ranger. But I think what we're talking about in this forum is we're talking about a return to values.
yes,
Because
that's what
there
it
were a
is.
certain
That's
set
the
of
word.
values back then where it was country, it was family, and it was, you work and you eat and you do the right thing.
You stand up for something.
It was
You do.
good versus evil. It was pretty binary.
Absolutely.
There was no gray.
And I think right now we are seeing that bipolar schism start again, where there are people that said, I want to go back to values. Of course, there's going to be always the rabble-rouser. But I think slowly but surely we're moving back to that. And I'm actually kind of glad because these old kinds of values, I think, can make a reoccurrence and still teach our kids things. Because, look, today is we're talking about a visual thing, and I'm getting into VR too. So It's a visual thing.
Mark is so busy.
Yeah, well, but
His wife says he's nuts.
Yeah, I'm completely off the rocker. But
and I'm glad that he's off his rocker.
He cracked me up on Facebook. We try to crack each other up. We try to one up each other on Facebook.
That's
now.
pretty tough to do with Richard, I'll tell you.
We try though.
Well, I haven't topped you yet, Richard, but I'm sure there will come a day. But I think if we, since it's a visual world now, we have to try to appeal to that visual world, and put something out there that has some value to it instead of just the blood and guts and shoot 'em ups on PlayStation or whatever the case is.
Yeah, the gratuitous action.
I mean, you do have to. That's the tough part because as I write this, you do have to add some of that. So I've read The Free State of Jones was a really good movie.
Oh yes,
but the book is amazing. Okay. The behind the scenes. I mean, here's a man who just fought for everything the war was against. In other words, what the war was for, he was totally against. Like, what am I fighting for exactly here? What's the agenda behind this? To take that stand, but to read how feral hogs would eat men, and from it. I mean, I took these visuals and placed them into the screenplay, as Lucas was part of the infantry of the Indiana in Indiana. So. What Mark's saying about values, if you could take characters that maybe have to go backwards to go forwards, and some Western characters that might be tormented because they did the right thing and it didn't work out for them, and they are now questioning whether or not they did the right thing, and then to validate that. It's stuff we're all going to go through. So I agree. I think Westerns are going to be an exciting genre to be part of.
I'm looking forward to both of them.
What always strikes me when I see a Western, which I haven't actually seen a Western in a while, but what women had to go through for just to get clothes clean, and we don't even want to talk about childbirth. I mean, I can't even imagine.
Well, the mortality rate for childbirth was
Exactly.
unbelievably high.
Exactly.
And to Susan's point, I made Margaret McCain, which we never hear about too much, that she just died in Wifeman. I made her the stalwart of the film, even though she doesn't stay very long.
Right.
She's the main influence as to why he became who he became, because of how strong women had to be inwardly as well as outward to raise a family.
But I think
keep bringing it
generally
back.
speaking, everybody had to be stronger. And, I love people. I'm a people person. But I think that the fact that everybody had to be stronger back then is just something to consider you didn't have any other choice. You had to be strong.
Yeah.
You either were strong or you
didn't
probably
make it.
died.
That's right.
Yeah.
You had to defend your boundaries, or you
Yeah,
didn't
and
make
you
it.
had to be, and if you weren't physically strong, you had to make up with it with being strong in your spirit and being determined. And I really respect that, because I guess I'm quite a determined individual. I think that I am, and I think back on those stories and what happened back then. I mean, you had to be determined. I mean, just to even know that your 9 months was about to be up, and my youngest boy is 6, so I still think about these things. That your time was about to be up, and and you were going to be there in a cabin having a baby, maybe in the dead of winter or something. I don't know. So
I do like that whole cabin in the winter thing.
Westerns appeal to me, even as a female. Westerns appeal to me.
Well, of course, because back then women were strong. They were very strong.
Very strong.
And now in this age of women's empowerment, I mean, one of the things behind the project that we're doing with Susan is women's empowerment, to elevate women in society to a position of respect that they may not have previously enjoyed before. But if America can actually see this woman, over here to my right, go from and start this thing from absolutely nothing and taking it to wherever it's going to go, and they can actually watch it. That will teach a lot of women and a lot of young girls to say, I can do that too.
Absolutely.
And if we instill that kind of that entrepreneurship, that dedication, to improving yourself, I think we'll see a tremendous change in the economic structure of our country, I think it'll make our country a lot stronger. Not that women won't need men or men won't need women, but I think it will foster that we need each other no matter what.
Right. And what he means by going, because on this project, which I can't wait to come back and tell you, so that we're not talking in code here, but we're going to let the viewer see this particular project that's going on from behind the scenes of having it evolve, and it's already evolving quickly now, and so we're actually almost trying to play catch up with everything because it's moving so quickly. So
That's amazing story. Can't wait to hear the rest of the story.
I can't wait to tell you.
I can't wait myself. I don't know what
Richard knows. He's lying. He knows already. I told him. I spilled the beans.
He's
I'm
on the
excited.
inside.
I made him sign an NDA, though.
Hey, that's fine.
I'm itchy on the inside.
I'll fill one out for you, too. Thank you both for being with us this afternoon. We
Thank
appreciate
you
it.
so much.
Great
It's an
to
honor
meet
and a
you,
pleasure.
hear your
Thank you.
stories.
Very
and,
nice to meet you.
Look
Thank
forward
you.
to following up. Susan Giacona and Mark Stocker, our special guest, along with Richard Rosso. I'm Brent Clanton. This is the Underbelly Podcast, and you can catch it later on our YouTube channel. Check us out at realinvestmentadvice.com, and have a good weekend.